Welcome to the channel. I'm Stacy, and my goal here is to help you to play better and sound better in your worship services. Today we're going to be going through the parts for the song "The Lord Will Provide" by Passion. I love this song, and I love songs that remind us that God is there for us, that He will take care of us and provide for us. And I've been through a lot of ups and downs, and definitely can look back on the low times and see where the Lord has done things that we didn't deserve to have done. And by His grace and mercy, we've been through it, got through it, and can look back and see just how much He has been at work in our lives. So anyway, I love songs like this, and let's just get into it. It's a fun one to play. It's got some real tasty licks up front, just with nice fretted stuff, and then we've got some fun slide parts. If you don't want to play the slide, you don't have to. I'll play them. A lot of times they're just A-shaped chords that we're playing, and then slight melodies, little melodies off of that. And so you can just bar it with your... you can bar it, or you can fret it with individual fingers, so you got a little bit more control to do some vibrato. But we'll get into it once we get to that part. Coming in right on the beginning, the intro comes in, and then we come in on the guitar at the tail end of the intro, right before the verse section. And we're going to be swelling in on basically a B chord, fretting the B string at the 12th fret, the D at the 13th. And then we're going to come down and slide the D and B at the 9th, and then the D and B at the 4th. With all the effects, it'll sound like this. It's a pretty simple part, so rather than going through it without the effects, we'll just hear what it's going to do. And then we're down for that first verse, and then we come in for that next chorus, the first chorus, and we're just going to be fretting an E-shaped or a C-shaped E chord here. And we're fretting the D at the 6th, the G at the 4th, the B at the 5th, and that part, that'll sound like this. And then we've got a fun little rake. We're going to rake over the A and D strings, fret the G string at the 6th fret, slide it up to the 8th, come back down and slide and fret the 6th. We're going to do the same thing, do that rake, strike it at the 6th, slide it up to the 9th. Slide it from there up to the 13th, strike it and slide it down to the 11th. Repeat that from the 6th to the 8th fret. Strike it again at the 6th fret, and then this time we're going to strike it at the 8th fret, slide it to the 9th. And then we're going to strike the D and B strings at the 9th. And then the B string, we're going to strike it at the 9th, slide it up to the 11th, and then the 12th. Strike the G string at the 11th. And then we're going to rake in a B sus4. That's going to fret the G at the 11th, the B and high E at the 12th, the high E at the 11th, at the 9th, the B at the 12th, and then we're going to rake over the D, G, and B strings at the 9th fret. Strike the G at the 11th. And then we end that section by picking the D at the 9th, the G at the 8th. With all the effects, it'll sound like this. Once we do that, we're in the next verse section, and then we come in for our first part on that verse. We're going to strike the G at the 4th fret, slide it up to the 6th, slide it up to the 8th, and then strike the D at the 6th fret. And then we're going to strike the D and G strings at the 9th, and then the D and then the G string at the 8th. So the D at the 9th both times, G at the 9th, and then G at the 8th. And then we're going to come back to that D and G string at the 9th. We're going to pick that and immediately slide that B string up to the 11th, the 12th, and then strike the G at the 11th. And then we're going to rake the D and G strings at the 9th, the B at the 14th, and then a big kind of a heavy pick strike and rake on the low E and A at the 7th fret, and the D and G at the 9th. And that part with all the effects will sound like this. Now we're in the next verse section, and for this one, we're going to pick our G string at the 6th fret, slide it up to the 8th, strike the high E at the 7th. We're going to reverse that, strike the G string at the 8th, slide it down to the 6th, and then this time fret the high E at the 6th. And then we're going to strike the G string at the 6th, slide it up to the 9th, strike the high E at the 9th. And then we're going to strike the G at the 9th, slide it up to the 13th, pick it, and then there's a little pause, pick it again, and slide it down to the 11th. And then we'll repeat that exactly the same way a second time. And then the third time through, we pick the G at the 6th, slide it up, where it's the same for the first two moves, only I'm also alternate picking those two fretted notes to kind of build it a little bit. And then this time when we slide it up to the 9th, we're going to let it ring and then strike it twice, slide down to the D string at the 6th fret, strike the D at the 8th, and then slide it up to the 9th, and then strike the A at the 9th. And with all the effects, that will sound like this. All right, and then now we're done with our clean tones. We're going to kick on. I've got it set on Snapshot 2 on the Helix and HX Stomp. I guess I did it on both. For the cover video, I used my pedal board and I just kicked on the ODR-1. And I'm going to grab my slide. Like I said, if you don't have a slide or you don't play slide, you can fret the strings that we're going to be playing with your index ring or middle, or your middle ring and pinky, however you prefer. I'm going to use the slide just because that's what's on the recording, and we'll go into it. So coming right off the bat, we're going to be raking the D, G, and B string at the 4th fret. And we're fretting that part. We're not hitting the slide just yet. We're going to strike that. We're going to rake that twice. And then we're going to be up here on, I believe, a C sharp minor. So we're going to be fretting the D and G string at the 6th fret and the B at the 5th. And then the D at the 6th, the G at the 4th, the B at the 5th. That's an E chord. And then back to that B chord, raking the D, G, and B strings at the 4th. There's a little bit of a pause on that, and then we're going to fret our, let's see how I did it. I think I fretted the A string at the 2nd and the D string at the 4th. I don't think I covered the low E string. We're just going to hit that 3 times palm muted, and then hit that full chord as much as you can fret. Let that ring out for a moment. And then it's going to die down as far as what the guitar is doing. but the song's building. And then we're going to come in fretting the D, G, and B strings at the 4th and slide it up to the 9th. Let me look at the chart here real quick. We're going to actually strike that first just on the 4th, let that ring, and then we're going to pick it at the 4th, slide it to the 9th. So that part will sound like this, and then we'll get into the slide section. Once we get into the slide section, I'll walk you through the parts and then I'll play it with the slide rather than trying to play it without all the effects. It's a little bit difficult to pull off for me. My slide technique isn't that great, but with the effects on it, I can get the notes to sustain and get the part covered. So we're going to fret the D, G, and B strings. Those are where we're going to be hanging out for, I think, the rest of this. Yep, it looks like the rest of this is on the D, G, and B. So we're going to strike or pick those notes at the 4th fret, slide it up to the 9th fret, and then we have a little bit of an arpeggio we're going to do, picking the D at the 9th, the B at the 9th, the G at the 9th. They're all going to be at the 9th, so we're just going to walk it like this from the D, G, B, and D again, and then we're going to slide down to the 4th. And we're just, like I said, the D, B, G, D, slide it back down to the 4th. Then we're going to strike the D at the 2nd, slide it up to the 4th, and then pick the G and B at the 4th. Pick those strings at the 4th again, slide it up to the 9th. And then we're going to strike the B, the D, and then the B again at the 9th and slide it up to the 11th. And then slide everything up to the 16th fret. And then strike the G and B string. And then we have a long slide down back to the 4th. With all the effects, that section will sound like this. And then we're going to be back fretting the D, G, and B at the 4th. We're going to fret them. And then we're going to fret them again and slide it up to the 11th. And then we're going to strike the B and G string. Slide down to the 9th. Strike the D, G, and B strings at the 4th up to the 9th, and then we're going to strike the B and G at the 9th, and then slide up to the 11th, come down to the 8th on the G, so the slide is on the G string, come back down to the 8th, and then we're going to strike the D at the 9th, slide it up to the 11th, and then we're going to, once we get to the 11th, pick the G string, the D again, and then the B and G. Slide it back down to the 9th, strike the D, G, and B at the 4th fret, again slide it up to the 9th, and then pick the B and G. Do that little slide again on the G from the 9th to the 11th, back to the 8th. The 9th to the 11th on the D. And I'll play it, it'll sound like this with the effects. The next section, we're going to strike the those strings, the D, G, and B at the 4th, slide up to the 11th, strike the B and the G string once we're at the 11th, come down to the 9th, go down to the 4th, slide it up to the 9th again, strike the B and then the G, and then we're going to have a little slide on the G string from the 9th to the 11th fret, come back to the 8th, and then on the D string from the 9th to the 11th, and then we're going to strike the G string once we get there, back to the D, and then the B, G, and then back to the 9th, and then from the 4th to the 9th again. And then we're going to slide up to the 17th fret, slide it down to the 16th. Once we're at the 16th, we're going to strike the G string and the D string. And then strike the B, slide it down to the 11th. Strike the B and G down to the 9th, and then strike the 4th fret on those 3 strings, slide it up to the 9th, strike the B and G strings, and then do that slide again from the 9th to the 11th on the G, and then come down to the 8th. The 9th to the 11th on the D, back to the 9th, and then we're going to have a little walk down at that 9th fret. We're going to strike the B, G, and D string, and then the B and G together. Strike strike those D, G, and B at the 4th, slide it up to the 16th, and then we're going to strike the D, and then the B, G, and D, down to the 9th, and then the 4th to the 9th again, and then the 9th to the 11th to the 8th on the G string, and then we're going to strike it to the 8th, slide it to the 9th, and then the 11th, and strike it again, and then take it up to the 16th and hit it another time. Then we're going to strike the D, G, and B strings at the 4th, slide them up to the 16th. We have that similar arpeggio, D, G, B, D. Land on the 9th fret, slide up from the 4th to the 9th again. And then we're going to kind of slow pick the B, G, and D strings back to the G, slide it up to the 11th fret. And then on the recording, they landed at the 8th. For some reason in the cover video, I came down to the 4th. It's still referencing the same chord. So if you slide it and you come down to the 8th, it'll do like this. If you slide it down to the 4th, it'll sound like this. You can land at the 8th, or you can go to the 4th. And then from there, we're going to slide from the 4th to the 9th. And then this time, we're going to pick the high E, B, and G strings. Back down to the 4th, and now we're at the end. We're going to strike the D, G, and B string at the 2nd fret, the 9th fret, the 4th fret. So I'm going to run through all of that now with all of the effects. this one helpful. If you did, subscribe and hit that like button for good measure. If you'd like the resources for this song, you'll find them at a link in the description box below. There are a handful of downloads free for you in there as well. All right, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.